Hi, welcome to this part 6 of my review featuring the Dark Lord role-playing game, where you play as a powerful evil lord that has set out to conquer the realms. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review, please check out the playlist in the description below. In this part, we are going to take a look at the Dark Domains, at Domination and Subversion. These are some of the most mechanical yet thematical aspects of the game, although the general flow of a session will be explained in a future part of this review. In the case of Dark Domains, each season during the domain phase, you use the loot from the adventure phase to build up your Dark Domain. That is, everything that you manage to pillage from a particular site, you're going to use it to build up your Dark Domain. Each Dark Lord on the council takes their turn in an order agreed upon amongst themselves, or if they cannot agree, it is determined by the Game Master. On their turn, a Dark Lord may either take an action or pass. Once they pass, they are out of all future domain rounds for the current season. Once every Dark Lord has passed their turn, the domain phase is over. There is no limit to the number of rounds in a single domain phase. Your Dark Domain consists of a number of territories, each of which can be activated once per season. When activated, a territory can use one activation effect from any of the improvements built in it. Only one improvement's activation effect can be used, no matter how many improvements the territory has, and if an improvement has more than one activation effect, you can only pick one of them. Once any activation effect has been used, the territory is exhausted and cannot be activated again for the rest of the season. And once you have activated a territory, your turn is done, and the next Dark Lord in line may take their action. Each territory can have no more than one improvement of each type built in it. Some improvements have passive effects. These happen automatically without activation. Some improvements allow for Lord actions. These take the Dark Lord's turn in the domain phase, but do not exhaust a territory for the season, representing your Dark Lord personally attending to a matter that does not put any particular strain on the population's energy or resources. For example, perhaps your Dark Lord is performing some sort of dark ritual. Now let's talk about some of these Dark Domains. We have the Apothecary. You can only build an Apothecary in a territory with healing herbs. With this, you can create potions, and depending on the apothecaries that you own, your potions are going to be more numerous and powerful. For example, maybe you only have one apothecary. You will only get to deal one healing potion to a minion. But what if you have 3 apothecaries in your domain? You would be able to grant 1 greater healing potion and 2 healing potions to your minions. What if you have 5? Then you would give them 1 superior healing potion, 2 greater healing potions, and 3 healing potions. And that's how the features in your domains work. For example, maybe you want to build a blacksmith to equip your minions better with better armor, more powerful weapons, and this improves as you build more blacksmiths, of course. Maybe you want to build a courthouse to apply taxes, to solve different problems and disputes, perhaps through blood sports. You can also spend on your fortifications to better protect your lands and your armies, to carry out your attacks from there, and perhaps leading from the front with your Dark Lord. Maybe you want to build a library that allows you to create different magical items and artifacts from your specific patterns. Remember that Dark Lords start with particular patterns for their magical items and artifacts. Maybe you build special areas to carry out rituals, alchemical experiments, conjurations, draconic bindings. Perhaps you build a market to carry out trade and commerce. Maybe you decide to invest in a mine to draw out all sorts of minerals and metals. Maybe you build a grand palace. This is a display of power. It provides so much prestige and intimidation that when a campaign is over, maybe you will be the Dark Lord to rule over all of the other Dark Lords. And these are just some of the features that you can build in your domains. Now let's talk about Domination. Many problems in this game are solved with violence, of course. This method of problem solving is referred to as Domination. Although there is no strict mechanical distinction between Domination and its counterpart Subversion, excepting that you probably won't use a whole lot of combat rules when subverting light realms, the enemy, the so-called good guys in this role-playing game. So when it comes to domination, you usually fight. When it comes to subversion, you use your skills and more subtle means to take control over an entire region, perhaps. So first, you have initiative. In the Darklord role-playing game, after the first time you've acted in combat, you will always have to wait until everyone else has acted to go again, which means initiative makes a difference only in the first round of combat. If a combat is a climactic confrontation, it will usually last between 3 to 5 rounds, which means initiative affects less than a third of it. If a combat is more set up or build up, chipping away the party's resources but with little chance of defeating them altogether, then it makes little difference whether the enemies get one action or two before going down. So you could roll for initiative like in other role-playing games, but here you have several options to use instead. The Darklord could pick a party member, one of his minions or her minions, to act. If that minion has not yet acted, of course, then the Game Master activates a non-player character to go in that turn, and so forth. The Darklord acts or activates one minion, the Game Master moves or activates one of the enemies, or maybe an entire side goes first, the Darklord and the minions, and then the Game Master activates the non-player characters, or perhaps initiative is activated or handled logically. Maybe someone is in a position of advantage and gets to attack first, perhaps you have already readied a ranged weapon, so there are many options here to handle initiative however you like. Now when it comes to attacks and damage, when making an attack roll, you roll a d20 with modifiers, and the total is compared against the target's dodge. Then a damage roll is made, using specific dice based on the weapon used, along with certain modifiers. The resulting damage is affected by the damage reduction of the target, and the remaining total is subtracted from the target's hit points or HP. Let's talk about actions in combat. When it is the turn of a character in combat, that character has 4 different types of actions available to them. They can do a standard action, a move action, a bonus action, and a reaction. So it is possible for a character to move, attack, perhaps attack again or activate a device as a bonus action, and react to anything that is being done to them. So attacks have already been explained. You make a d20 roll, you add some modifiers, and you compare it against the enemy's dodge. If you overcome the enemy's dodge, then you get to deal damage. You can take some modifiers, additional modifiers to your attack. So for example, you could take a penalty to your dodge so that you can get a bonus to your attack, and vice versa. You could also take a penalty on an attack roll in order to attack a second creature within range with the same attack. This option can be taken any number of times for an escalating penalty. So you could take a hefty penalty to your attack in order to target 2 or perhaps 3 or 4 enemies at the same time. When an attacker lands a melee attack on an enemy, the attack is automatically a critical hit unless the target takes an immediate 5-foot step away from the attack. A creature can do this a number of times per round determined by their dexterity bonus, and this does not provoke attack of opportunity. If the target does this, the attacker may make an immediate 5-foot step to catch up. If there are no empty squares in the direction away from the attacker for the target to 5-foot step into, the target must take the critical. So as you can see, battles are very bloody, quite lethal and fast each turn. You're going to be attacking several times, and if you inflict damage, unless they back away, they are going to end up severely injured, or perhaps they may be slain right then and there. You can also use the standard action, not just for attacks, you can also use it to aid another creature with a bonus to their skill checks. You could take a dash action, that is moving twice. You could perhaps choose to disengage your enemy. You could choose to focus completely on dodging. You could choose to grapple. You can even choose to grapple a creature that is much larger than you, in the Shadow of the Colossus style. So you can climb that creature and you can attack that creature from on top of it, ignoring the damage reduction. And when that creature moves, you are moving on top of that creature, of course. You could also choose to hide, to ready an action, retrieve an item, etc. When it comes to move actions, when you take a move action, you can move up to your speed. The squares that contain difficult terrain count double for purposes of movement, that is, when you don't have a specific swim or climb speed. You could also pass through an ally's square but not end in that square. You cannot pass through an enemy's square. You could jump and climb, as I said, or swim. There are many different forms of traversing the battlefield. You can also use your move to stand up from prone if you ended up that way because of an attack or an effect or spell. You could also interact with an object. And when it comes to bonus actions, you could perhaps drink a potion that is already being held in your hand. You could perform a second interaction by perhaps pushing a button, pulling a lever. You can also make an offhand attack with a light weapon as a bonus action, but you do not add the ability bonus to the damage. When it comes to reactions, the most common reaction is the attack of opportunity or reaction attack. Whenever a creature exits a space threatened by a melee weapon you are wielding, whether they are running away from you or maneuvering around you, you may make a single free attack on them using your reaction. If you are wielding a light ranged weapon, you may make an attack of opportunity with it as though you threaten the squares immediately adjacent to you. You can also attempt to parry an incoming melee attack as a reaction. Whenever an enemy attacks you in melee, you may roll an attack roll. If your attack roll equals or exceeds theirs, their attack is parried. You can also use your reaction when your readied action is triggered, and so forth. Now, when it comes to special combat rules, there are many different details. For example, attacks against creatures behind partial cover have disadvantage. A creature could delay their turn, setting their initiative lower or higher than its current score, or any way in which you are handling initiative, as explained earlier. You have details on when the creature is flanked, more details on ranged attacks against, for example, prone opponents, the penalties that you suffer when you try to attack someone away from you that is behind a number of creatures. Maybe you end up hitting one of those other targets instead. You also have information on conditions, which are pretty much self-explanatory. You could suffer from bleeding, maybe you ended up blind or charmed or confused, maybe you are set on fire, maybe you are frightened or paralyzed, maybe you are invisible due to a spell or a magic item. Now let's talk about Subversion. Although there is no mechanically enforced distinction between Subversion and Domination, Dark Lord adventures tend to be split into two basic styles. A style that conquers through brute force, that is Domination, and a style that relies completely on deceit, subtlety, the use of skills and spells, that is Subversion. Domination is all about direct assaults and lightning raids, in which the Dark Lord and their entourage use the combat rules to completely destroy their enemies. When it comes to Subversion, it's all about trickery, stealth, or some weird magical effects like plague or illusion. The backbone of most subversions are skills. Each class has a list of skills that they are proficient in, of course. Both the Dark Lords and the minions have their own unique skills, and when they roll these skills, they add their relevant modifiers as well. You can also attempt to roll a skill you are not proficient in. In this case, you do not add your proficiency bonus, and if the situation permits it, you could even take a 10 or a 20, like many other D20 based systems, giving you an automatic success. So you could use your athletics and acrobatics to perhaps infiltrate a fortress in order to assassinate a key figure. Maybe you use your sleight of hand or your knowledge of history to plant disinformation within a nation, modifying key events, switching and changing documents, replacing medicines with poisons in order to spread confusion. Maybe you decide to rely on your perception and insight to detect quarrels or conflicts within the nobility of a place that you want to conquer, fan those conflicts, create an internal war, perhaps even a civil war, so that the nation destroys itself from the inside, and then you move in to destroy the weakened nation. And that concludes the review for today. As you can see, there are many ways in which a Dark Lord and his or her minions can conquer an entire kingdom, through overwhelming power or through subtle and unthought of means. You can take control of an entire area. Thanks for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending drive-thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.